welcome to the show, everybody. How are you? Happy Thursday. We start our show a little late on Thursdays because I have family FaceTime, and these days it has particular importance due to the fact that my dad and my stepmom both have COVID. They are on the mend. Spoke to them today. Just saw them right before the show, and they're as my dad would say, puny, but otherwise okay. And welcome to the show. Glad you guys could be here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share the show, spread it around, do whatever you think is appropriate within your sphere of influence to help us gain some ground as we try to, I think we spread a different kind of perspective on this show. It's almost like I'm the only anti-Chicken Little network that exists at this point. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that for the super chat. Bless you guys. Thank you guys so much, and welcome everybody. Hi, Brucery. Thanks for following. Thanks for the hosting, Joe, and gifting subs. That's beautiful. That gives us those kind of activities in the chat room on Twitch is the kind of thing that, I don't know, I've heard it can start a hype train. I've heard of that kind of thing happening before, but we'll see what happens. And by the way, Facebook, hopefully you guys are okay today, without too much of a panic. I've made attempts to kind of, limit and clean out the number of potential marauders. Facebook is definitely targeting progressive streams, so unfortunately you have to watch what we say and how we respond to trolls. Yeah, that may be actually what's going on currently. Also, anyways, just welcome. Glad you guys could be here. It should be a good time. Obviously, there's a lot happening today. First of all, the House voted today to recommend that Steve Bannon end up getting, having to show up for the Select Committee for on January 6th, like any other human being. It's weird that even has to be a thing, but it does apparently. And but don't worry, leave it. Oops, why is that? Why is there no signal there? That's very strange. Come back. Where are you going, you strange little being? Go back to the thing. Nope, that's not it either. All right, give me 1 second. Of course, it's always something, some monkey wrench, always being thrown into the system. Let's see, displays. Oh, I know what I have to do. Pardon me for 1 second. I'll be right back. Give me 1 second. Chat amongst yourselves. The old unplug and plug something back in plan. We'll see if that worked. It's just a theory I'm going with. Look at that. It works. And it's, I could crawl under my desk in full view of everybody, but this just seems unprofessional, And we don't need to launch, I think we're okay, but I don't need to launch Plumber's Crack at any point during this show as a way of being. I think I'm all right, but just in case. Thank you for your concern about the folks. I appreciate that. I hope they feel better too. We're all, waiting with bated breath. Dad's already arcing through it. And my stepmom is, she's about 3 days behind him. And there you go. So fingers crossed. We shall see what we shall see. But, all of a sudden, Matt Gaetz is very concerned that, there could be a better use of time, on the, in the House, spending all this time trying to talk to Steve Bannon. And now they're, when we all know they could spend their time more wisely helping the American people. Now, one would think if you felt this way, you would just call a roll call vote. No one would need to speak. You could just vote on Steve, on the Steve Bannon thing, yay or nay, and get the fuck on with it. But apparently not. But let's see what this is his own posted thing. This is Matt Gaetz loves to post his own stuff about what he says. Let's see indeed what he actually says in this thing. Hold on, I'm going to turn that thing on and then you go back to here, and then we hit this play and pause, and this is the business.
January 6th was not a good day.
Well, that's a way to take the tough road. That's it's not a good day. It was a bold statement. I mean, downright poetry.
But to my knowledge, there's been no charge of insurrection or terrorism. Largely, the charges that have been levied against those who were involved in breaking the law result in property damage charges.
Largely, except for those that were trying to interfere with the function of government and trespass and do property damage, using that as and the incitement of violence towards members of Congress and the carrying out of their duties. There is no such thing as a charge of insurrection, insofar as I know. But what these do add up to is insurrection soup. Essentially, you need a broth of trespass. With the intent to cause bodily harm, a little sprinkle of that, and some sliced carrots of hang Mike Pence, and then the idea that you're going to stop the count because Mike Pence wasn't doing it, and then bashing through a window and shitting in Pelosi's office, and then trying to steal things so that you could stop the government from working, selling laptops to Russia and whatnot.
And it's my expectation that if there are folks who broke the law, they should be treated no better or no worse than anyone else.
Right. It's very important that the people who are charged for what they did on that day, we should just focus on the people who did it that day. Never mind there's a mastermind behind it. Never mind that it was a coordinated effort. Never mind that someone paid for buses to bring them there. Never mind that they were all talking on WhatsApp and conversing about what entrance would be best, and they were getting some heads up from people in power. Never mind that part. Just throw the grunts in jail and get on with it.
These particular laws. But all of this is ridiculous.
What, a gathering in a room?
Mr. Chairman, the American people are in trouble. I was recently in Qatar on a bipartisan delegation led.
Yeah, you were?
Mr. Issa, and we learned directly that thousands upon thousands of Afghans were let into our country with principally no vetting, no screening. The general we met with.
Yeah, why would we let in the people who helped us for years and their wives without first vetting their 8-year-old and their 12-year-old daughter? I mean, honestly.
At the base in Doha, said that refugees were merely handed a blank sheet of paper, and whatever they wrote on it was deemed their paper passport. And people are concerned about that.
Yeah. You know, we should, in any case, make sure that the people that we rescue from a violent situation, if they didn't leave the house with their proper identification, should just basically be dropped in the desert somewhere. I mean, do you have ID? No. We can't let you in. But my things were burned by the Taliban. Oh, well, tough shit, I guess. But my husband has a bullet in his shoulder still from helping U.S. No, that's not gonna. How do we know? Because that soldier worked with us. That's not good enough.
On our border, we functionally have a turnstile. I never believed
a turnstile. I see. So they come in and then they go right back out. Or you mean a revolving door?
President Biden could be worse than President Obama on the border, but we've gone.
Well, actually, Obama was better on the border than Trump was, and if you're using your standard.
From the Obama days of catch and release to the Biden days of import and release.
Import and release. I see. So we sent planes to Haiti to fly people in. We're just going to Guatemala and picking up plane loads of people and bringing them in. So is there a duty on those folks? If we're importing them, obviously there has to be some sort of a tariff, or at least taking a foot.
Being really beckoned across the border as a consequence of our policies and then shuttled around the country.
Beckoned across by the way, the only people beckoning people across the border are, of course, Republicans who are telling the entire world we have an open border and that Biden said, come on in, neither of which is true.
And our supply chain issues have come to the forefront of the minds of so many.
They have gummed to the forefront. I mean, if of all the things that gummed to the forefront, this is one of them.
Americans, supply chain used to be something people learned about in economics class. And now the supply chain issues are resulting in inadequate access to things that people need. And we see the Washington Post tell Americans to just lower their expectations.
Well, yeah, you can't pray, plastic toys from China into existence at this point. Yeah, so this would lower your expectations because it has nothing to do with the output of the United States or anything like that. These are things that are normally shipped from another country, and they ain't coming from there anymore because they have no power and they have their economy is collapsing. So they've got bigger fish to fry.
The American economy. I was recently at the port of Long Beach. I saw just, cargo ship after cargo ship. You could about walk from the port of Long Beach to the Channel Islands in California without ever having your feet touch the water.
Well, if your legs are 600 feet long and you're obviously wearing galoshes.
Cargo ships that cannot come into port because of a total failure of the U.S. economy.
Sorry, a total failure of the U.S. economy. I wasn't aware of that. I didn't realize that your debit card no longer works, that no one's cash is worth anything anymore. No one is selling anything or buying anything, bought or sold, selling anything, sold or bought or sold.
Our country has been humiliated abroad.
Well, yes, you just got back from Qatar. It's humiliating. The people in that country had to see you. Just people of Qatar who may be watching this, no, not all of us sex traffic 17-year-olds and have the head the size of a watermelon with big boy hair.
Afghanistan, where reliance on this strategy of an Afghan government being left to facilitate American departure and withdrawal turned out to be a total fiction. And yet here we are.
Wait. Your clip, was that an edit?
Departure and withdrawal turned out to be a total fiction. And yet here we are.
Yep. Yeah. Do you notice that guy, that little shiver? See, most of us would have thought that this little post from Matt Gaetz turns out he's cutting shit out.
A total fiction. And yet here we are reviewing Steve Bannon's podcast.
Well, for things he said the day before January 6th, not overall. They weren't giving it like 3 stars. That would be far too generous.
The average American, when they wake up, I don't think one of the first 100 things they think about is Steve Bannon's podcast.
Yeah, they shouldn't have to. See, that's why government can take care of that while the rest of us are getting on with things, because we don't want to have to think about it. No one wants to think about that. Have you seen the man's skin?
Things he said before or after January 6th. I think that is...
Well, before and during has a lot to do with what you're talking about. After, mostly a cover story.
A uniquely Washington obsession. And it wouldn't be so damaging to our country if it wasn't absorbing the capacity of the Congress to meet the actual challenges that the American people are facing.
Yeah. Why aren't they discussing the Matt Gaetz supply chain lube bill? Why have they not Matt Gaetz build that wall better back bill with funding straight from Mexico through Save America PAC? Why are they wasting all this time during this particular committee when they have all these other committees that other people are on?
Really think that your constituents are out there hoping that you guys are here sharing your hot takes on Steve Bannon's podcast rather than dealing with the inflation that is crushing them, the border crisis that is concerning them?
Well, I'm sorry. Are we dealing with only things that are crushing? Or because if it's something that's concerning them, then obviously we're not going to just deal with everything that concerns people. It's only going to be the things we can do something about. We're all concerned about the Tooth Fairy and why he never submits to a background check. It's obviously a problem.
Problems we have abroad. It's truly shameful that this is got the focus and the obsession of so many in the Congress.
No, it doesn't have the obsession. They just need it into the record, and they need to interview this dude. He's not the primary person. No one's living and breathing for what the fuck Steve Bannon says, except Matt Gaetz, which we'll get to in a moment.
There's been discussion today about Mr.
By the way, in case you're worried about, Congress wasting their time with on Steve Bannon. Gates goes on Steve Bannon's show the same day. So, yeah, right. That's I know. It's curious, isn't it?
Mr. Bannon's response being one of total and complete defiance. I believe those are the words that my colleague from Colorado used. But that's not true. Mr. Bannon simply wants claims of executive privilege to be resolved.
Yeah, he wasn't working for the White House when this took place. He has no claim of executive privilege. The White House is not. They have said they don't respect that as executive privilege. The president chit-chatting with a dude is not executive privilege. If that guy's an advisor, put him on the books.
And I am not competent to resolve those questions. I don't know.
Well, that's true of all questions, except what age is underage? I'm sure you legally know that.
Those claims are meritorious or not. But I do think that a person, when presented with such demands from the January 6th committee, might reasonably want those questions to be resolved in the absence of some total and complete defiance. We saw
no, he can fuck off and show up for the subpoena because Congress says so. If he wants to bring a lawyer and have that lawyer go, we believe that's an action of exec privilege. He can exercise that when he shows up.
In the Don McGahn scenario, where once the constitutional questions and legal issues were resolved, Mr. McGahn came in and we were able to.
And Mr. McGahn was actually working for the president when that happened. Steve Bannon was not.
Have an interview.
He also wasn't in the fucking White House.
Much has been said today about the failing institutions in America.
Oh, by the way, everybody watching, don't pay attention to the fact that Steve Bannon's citing of executive privilege is proof that he was talking to Trump on January 6th and in the lead up to it, because there would be no reason to use executive privilege if he hadn't been in contact with the president, nor any expectation of privilege if he hadn't been in contact with the president. So that is a tacit admission that he was indeed in contact with the president on at least the 5th and 6th and in the lead up. Just saying, oops.
And who is to blame for them? So many of my colleagues on the left talk about Trump being this savage against our institutions. And
no, I wouldn't use savage. It's like blithering idiot, anti-democratic, un-American fool. Something along
institutions are all going to fail because of Trump and the insurrectionist Republicans. But truly, this is a case of projection. After the 2016 election, Democrats repeatedly called President Trump an illegitimate president.
Yeah, but they didn't storm the fucking Capitol and never once threatened to hang Mike Pence.
Damaged the institution of our electoral process by claiming that Trump was a Russian agent.
No, actually, that wasn't a factor at all. It didn't affect anyone's willingness to vote. As a matter of fact, the alternative is true in that the January 6th insurrection is driving down voter turnout amongst Republicans, which I am on all ethical level against. And yet,
and fake that all turned out to be. We've even seen the Democrats back institutions that have done great violence to our sense of justice. When the FBI was changing evidence in a secret court to go after President Trump and his allies.
Actually, the one guy who was busted for changing something on a FISA warrant would have lessened the chance of Carter Page getting his warrant extended. He was actually helping Trump and Carter Page by lowering the chance. And that's what he lied about.
They certainly were able to rely on my colleagues on the left to have their back. And the U.S. dollar is a pretty important institution to American families. And the policies being considered by the majority in this Congress would crush the dollar. It would
crush the dollar. How so? Well, I'm sure he explains. I shouldn't jump in too quickly.
Punish savers and seniors.
Savers and seniors? Oh, you mean by like driving down interest rates to like below zero? You know, that whole concept? Let's see. Oops, 1 second. Let's see. Trump What's negative interest rates? You mean you mean like that? You mean like wanting negative interest rates so that everybody's savings aren't worth shit? Remember that? Remember this whole thing? Remember him wanting us to be able to borrow money at a negative interest rate? Remember that? Yeah, the dollar is at an all-time high right now. It's yeah, don't get me started. Like, yeah, monetary policy in and of himself, like the idea that we're going to drive down the dollar is actually, to some degree, like there's that argument that the dollar can be too strong at times as far as consumer goods across the world. There's a lack of dollars in the world, which is ironic because everybody talks about we're just printing money,
leading to massive inflation, getting people caught with real impact on their lives that go beyond your perception of Steve Bannon's podcast.
This is sort of adorable.
So this week, it is the institution of Congress that is failing to meet the needs of the people. But in the prior panel, we heard Chair Thompson and Congresswoman Cheney really give up the game because this isn't about a contempt proceeding.
No, this is not. This is about, what is this about?
Everything the American people are watching today is about the inward turning of our...
Oh, dear God. I didn't think he said inward. That concerned me for a second. He said inward, just for the record.
National security apparatus and law enforcement against political rivals. Mr. Thompson, Chairman Thompson, talked about criminal contempt referrals. I would proffer to the committee that Chairman Thompson knows exactly why he made that statement, because he knows there are willing hands at the Department of Justice ready to receive such a referral and to criminalize our politics.
This isn't politics. There's a subpoena. That's part of the law. If you have a legal reason to ignore a subpoena, you can file a lawsuit around it or make that direct statement, but you can't just leave it up to anybody else and say, I'm not showing up. And you can show up and go, I think this violates the executive privilege, and there's no action on that. And then you can make them go, well, we disagree, and the White House isn't exercising that. That is up to the current inhabitant of the White House, which is President Biden. He's not exercising it. So have fun in jail, dum-dum.
Bannon wants to wait to see if there is a privilege issue resolved by a court. And as a consequence, this is all just theater to set up the utilization of criminal process against Steve Bannon.
Well, none of it would be necessary if he just came down and testified. What's the problem?
We also heard Congresswoman Cheney echo those very themes. In her comments regarding Leader McCarthy, someone that I don't agree with in all circumstances, Congresswoman...
Except for the Trump rusty trombone issues. Then I mean, they're all in.
He said that Mr. McCarthy had been especially active in blocking the January 6th committee. Those words were chosen on purpose because obstructing a congressional investigation, as we all know, is a crime. And so this isn't about Mr. McCarthy's discussions. This isn't about his perspective. This isn't about his votes or his speeches. This is about setting up people like Steve Bannon and Kevin McCarthy for criminal process.
Well, no, you don't have to set it up. You just establish that the law is there. I mean, ignorance of the law is no excuse, but reminding the rest of the world, and especially Republicans, that these guys are breaking the law in the process, just talking about it, seems a wise thing to do. Perhaps, in deference to you, the Republican Party is made up wholly of dumbasses who think the law does not apply to them. And in these circumstances, it behooves the head of the committee or any of the other people on the committee to bring up the fact that indeed the law does work for everyone and apply to everyone, and that you don't get to skate out of it just because Trump likes pointing at you and doing the hand job gesture at a rally.
And the American people need to know that has begun now. It began in that committee, and this is another step along the way to criminalize political activity.
By the way, this is from his Twitter feed, and if you'll notice down there, it says Gaetz rips J6 obsessed Dems targeting Steve Bannon. He's ripping them right now, as opposed to, I know what you're thinking, boring them to tears. But no, he's apparently ripping them currently. And if you want to see more of that, apparently you can see all firebrand content, because you can go to gates.house.gov/firebrand if you want to see this kind of lightning.
But the American people should also know it's not just the Kevin McCarthys and the Steve Bannons that are going to be targeted.
No, it's obviously going to be the Trumps and the Mark Meadows, the other people who've been mentioned by the committee.
Not just going to be the powerful and the rich and the famous and people you see on TV.
And the smelly and the warty.
The tell for that is that the federal government is going to be reviewing transactions over $600.
Well, no, that's actually changed. Let's see. IRS reporting level. Hold on. Whoops. Quit. Go back. I was watching it. Oh yeah, here it is. Quit it. I just want to see the paper, don't I? All right. Well, I'll just have to show you the links. House Dems take step back from Biden on tax hikes. Democrats agree to narrow Biden plan, giving IRS back data. Having reached a deal to narrow President Joe Biden's plan to require financial institutions to report account flows to the Internal Revenue Service, it is now at $10,000 instead of $600. That's just so you know. But I mean, Gates knows this because he works where this happened. And also, he works in the part of the government that requested the low number in the first place, House Democrats, and then they included it in the Biden plan, and then in the Senate Democrats went, nah, that's too much, and people are freaking out, and it went back up to $10,000. So, but by the way, he knows this, so he's just pretending he doesn't know this right now.
That's what they want to do, and the whole reason that's the case is because it's not going to be an effort exclusively against those with money and power. It is going to be an effort against regular Americans to criminalize their politics.
How do you criminalize someone's politics based on how much money passes through their account in a year? Was it anybody who's got below $10,000 like, they're poor, probably a Democrat, let them go? Anybody over $10,000, probably a Republican, probably voted Republican.
My friends, Democrats need January 6th right now more than ever. They need it because they can't pass a bill. I mean, this isn't Republicans.
They already passed the infrastructure bill. They're just bringing it back. So then, of course, the other bill is being negotiated right now.
The gentleman from...
I'm sorry, what bills have you passed? We'll wait.
New Jersey, Mr. Gottheimer, and others in the Blue Dog Caucus saying, we were promised a vote on the infrastructure bill, and it is a betrayal of the trust that we have with Speaker Pelosi that vote didn't occur. So here we are. You can't get an infrastructure bill. You can't get a reconciliation bill.
Put a pin in that. We'll revisit that in a couple weeks.
You can't meet the needs of the country. The border is a mess. Afghans are coming in unvetted. The dollar is crumbling. The economy is failing.
The dollar is crumbling. That's a surprising choice right there. The dollar is crumbling. Okay.
Supply chain issues are hurting Americans' families.
Right, but that doesn't actually, there's nothing you could do about a bunch of those. Literally nothing other than over time shorten the supply chain, move it closer to home, or wait for companies to move their factories and processing plants out of China.
Desperately need to obsess about January 6th. I would suggest that you need to move on, and the American people are ready to move on.
You know what? Guys, let's just pack it up. He's right. Isn't this a waste of time? We could all just be, laboring over right-wing talking points and going to the floor and yammering about them instead of working on the fact that there was the biggest attack on our democracy since the War of 1812.
If we are going to obsess about calls for violence, it would be important to note that there's a good amount of hypocrisy in this Democrat-led effort.
Mm-hmm.
example, when Congresswoman Maxine Waters called on Democrats to physically intimidate President Trump's cabinet officials.
Physically intimidate them by getting in their face and telling them they're not welcome? Is that physical intimidation? Are you on board with the idea? Please be on board, Matt Gaetz, with the idea that that qualifies as physical intimidation.
There was no such effort.
I was physically intimidated by a woman in a pussy hat telling me to piss off. I think my arm still hurts.
For contempt or review or committees or commission, Congresswoman Waters said, let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd and you push back on them and you tell them they're not welcome anymore. It was a Democrat Missouri state senator who said, I hope Trump is assassinated. It was former Attorney General.
Democratic state senator? And this has to do with Washington, D.C. How?
Eric Holder, who said, no, when they go low, we kick them, referring to Republicans. Physical kinetic energy against your political opponents.
Yeah, I think that's an analogy. Are we?
We heard Speaker.
That was an edit. What'd you take out there?
Pelosi also say, quote, I'm counting down the hours till he's gone. I plan to pull him out of there by his hair, his little hands and feet. Time and again.
Ouch, a little hands hit.
We see these calls for violence. We see actual violence
But you want those prosecuted, which never resulted in any physical violence, but an event that actually resulted in physical violence. And I will grant that the calls for violence are bad and no one should do them. I have rules about that. You guys know I have a rule about that. I think it sucks. I think that was a mistake on Maxine Waters' part. But if this asshole wants to go, we need to investigate that stuff or call that on the carpet when it was all metaphorical and did not result in any physical harm in an attempt to keep us from looking into a day when physical harm occurred, not just to Democrats, by the way. Let's understand, they built the gallows and they were saying hang Mike Pence. They were going to shoot Nancy Pelosi in her friggin' brain is the phrase, and then they were going to hang Mike Pence. This became a regular chant that day. They broke in. They smashed through into the Capitol. They injured 140 police officers. He doesn't want to look into that. The actual physical activity that harmed human beings who were protecting our democracy, because he doesn't agree with something that Maxine Waters says. Right. I'm sure he will call out MTG in the same way.
Far more grave and far more damaging to our country throughout the summer of 2020 than the unfortunate acts on a bad day on January 6th.
Yeah, it was a bad day. It was a bad day. It was like, you know what I mean? It was like a lot of stuff going on. I missed my train. People shit in Pelosi's office. You spilled some coffee on your slacks and they were, they're taupe and not tan. So it really...
I would encourage the committee.
Oh, and a cop got his spine chipped while he was being crushed in a door by a bunch of Trump supporters yelling heave ho and pushing against police officers before they stormed into the Capitol and brought a Confederate flag into the American Capitol. Yeah.
Congress to do what the American people have done, move on from this, and let's focus on the actual issues that affect.
Affect what? That's an interesting edit. Yes, Matt Gaetz wants you to know, ladies and gentlemen, that we don't have time for this. We don't have time to obsess over, oh shit. Apparently we do. Apparently not only do we have a responsibility, I suppose, to fret over Steve Bannon. Now, Matt Gaetz, by the way, could have taken those remarks that he made, entered them into the record, and go, in deference to time, this shouldn't take any longer than it does. I know you guys are going to vote the way you're going to vote. So here's my statement I'm entering into the record, and I am going to, I'm going to say I disagree with what's going on here today. Really? Same stuff? What? All right, hold on. Simmer down. Let's see. All right, hold on. Gonna go back to the thing and look up thing I do. And then go to live producer, see what's going on. And we'll try to do the thing. I'm looking over at the Facebook thing. I'm looking at the Facebook help. We'll see. Let's see. 11 warnings. And again, none of this seems to make sense. Hold on one second. If I might go in here, comments or whatever, we'll put that under restricted. That's good. Viewer situation stream. Let's see. Interactivity. Who's there? All right. Going back to here. Go back to the dashboard. I'm on Twitch and Facebook. I'm not quite sure what the issue. Yeah, Facebook is fine for some folks. And not others. I got to come back. There we go. Hold on. 1 second. Okay, go back here. Let's see. If I might, let me grab this real quick. Just doing a little bit of behind the scenes. If you don't mind. Let's see. Let's see. So nobody. Yeah, nobody's. There doesn't seem to be anything weird going on in that regard. I don't know what the 11 warnings are. This might be a choice of language. Hard to say, kids. But I will keep an eye on that. Let me pop this out so I'll have a better look. Those of you on better look than those of you on the app. Is it an app issue? And like I said, I'm not quite sure what you might be typing in that might get you kicked out, or if there's any stuff that I'm doing that might do this. Facebook is a bit weird about those things, so we'll keep an eye on it. And it's frozen. It might be that Facebook is locking down my stuff, which happens as well. So infotainmentwars.com on the YouTube page, we have no problems there. Same thing with Twitch. That, you know, if there's a backup on that, that would be the easy thing to go. Twitch.tv/HalSparks. There we go. Having plenty of free space on the phone. Still freezes. Still frozen. Yes, frozen. Okay. I'm going to do this real quick, if I might. On Facebook, I'm going to turn it off and back on again. Give me 1 second. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we're back. And hopefully that will solve some of this. But we shall see what we shall see. Frozen all the time. Facebook. Yeah, Facebook's a problem. So there you go. Hopefully it'll start back up in a second. It's trolls. You think so? Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, here we go. Let's keep moving forward. If you have a problem on Facebook, I recommend twitch.tv/HalSparks or YouTube, because there's nothing that intrinsically that is affecting anything on my end. So there you go. Okay, here we go.
Really think that your constituents are out there hoping that you guys are here sharing your hot takes on Steve Bannon's podcast rather than dealing with the inflation that is crushing them, the border crisis that is concerning them?
He's just playing the same shit. There you go. And this is Raskin's take on him. That's what he cut out. Okay, cut out Raskin's conversation with him. There we go. And then here comes Steve Bannon. This is the guy who just was voted on as crustiest man in Trump's inner circle besides Trump.
Wow, Jamie. Here, I'll see you like a piece of that. That may work on Steve Bannon's podcast, but it won't work here. Benny Thompson and little Jamie Raskin. Okay, I got to bring in Congressman Matt Gaetz, who was having that throwdown Congressman, first off, explain to our audience, in particular, we've got
explain to our audience how talking about it in Congress is a waste of time, but you have time to be here talking about it on the show, defending Bannon to his face.
Millions of the diaspora, the Chinese people. Where were you, and why is this so heated in these type of meetings? What was going on today, and why were you the tip of the spear in this fight?
Well, just the tip, but that's a whole other game, and he only plays that on flights, where they're transporting ecstasy and underage minors to and from Florida and Georgia.
So the Rules Committee is one of the most important committees in the Congress. They take the legislative questions and the action that's going to occur on the floor, and they package it up, and they the constraint around what can be discussed, what can be.
Yes, apparently the Rules Committee passed a new rule on how shitty the connection can be between Steve Bannon and his guests.
Voted on. And what we're seeing now in the Congress is it's Steve Bannon week. It's not the week to address their legislative goals or to address the economic crisis or the supply chain crisis.
You do realize there are other committees. This is the other thing that Republicans play all the time, that the January 6th committee is the only committee in existence, because they're going to pretend that all the other committees aren't meeting and dealing with normal stuff, and that the Democrats aren't meeting about the bills and crafting ways of squeezing the 3.5 into about 2 trillion. Who called it, by the way? Who called it? Who said it didn't matter if you voted before or after, it's going to get pared down? And everybody's like, if we make them vote for this first, then they'll never have time to pare it down. And the other people were like, we're not going to vote for that until you start paring this down. And then it got pared down. Like, this is so stupid.
Border, the fact that we have thousands of Afghan refugees coming in with little to no vetting. No. The real big issue that the Congress is going to now.
So you could put together a team to vet those people who are on military bases, for example, or waiting in Qatar and other places to get into the United States, and make sure that they're vetted, or go back over them. I mean, you and your staff could literally you could have spent the last month going over everyone who came in and their families and going, okay, who do we redline? Let's make a pile of everybody who is vetted clearly and who has worked with us, and a pile who has not. And we're going to go through all these folks, and then I'm going to need to call together my colleagues, and we're going to go to the floor and talk about, the military guys who have to clear these folks and how we're doing that and what the process is. I mean, that would be a functional use of your time. But instead, you bitch about Steve Bannon being a waste of time in the House Rules Committee, and then come on his show and bitch about how it's a waste of time there too.
On at least for a week is you, Steve, and this podcast. So in the Rules Committee, I was there alongside Jim Jordan to oppose sending a censure of you to the floor of the House of Representatives.
A censure? They're not censuring him, dumbass. He's violating a subpoena, and they're going through the process that you have to go through for him to have to honor that subpoena.
And I did that because we are in a very...
And I did that because if people find out who he talked to on that day, they'll realize that he talked to me and Jim Jordan, and that Jim Jordan has already lied to Congress. And we can't have that.
Time in America where criminal process is going to be used to settle political scores.
Well, this isn't a political score. I mean, you could argue that his own testimony in front of the House committee would settle a political score if indeed he had not engaged in anything illegal and had nothing to hide. I'm being silly.
The reason I know that's the case is because Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney gave away the game. Benny Thompson specifically talked about criminal referrals, and it makes you wonder, how is it that Benny Thompson is so sure that the Justice Department would take that up and do something with it? He's not talking about criminal referral.
Because the law is really clear. That's why he can be sure. Because the committee is a lawfully convened committee, and they have the right to subpoena people, and none of the people that they're subpoenaing have any of the legal protections they are using. None of it holds water. So the reason he knows this, and the process is they vote on it, then the House votes on it, then the DOJ acts on it. That's just because that's how the ladder is shaped.
In the abstract, it's because they have planned this out. It's precisely why.
Yes, they planned this even before the insurrection. They were always going to call Steve Bannon just because they wanted to be downwind from him.
Merrick Garland is coming to the Judiciary Committee tomorrow. The 1-2 punch here is do the Bannon votes, have the Bannon Rules Committee hearing, and then have Merrick Garland show up tomorrow in the Judiciary Committee and announce that he is prepared to use the Department of Justice against those who he thinks were advising the president regarding anything. And the reason that's so...
Well, no, obviously not regarding anything. And by the way, he didn't end up saying that. He said precisely that he would stand by the letter of the law. Which is, by the way, that a lawfully convened committee has subpoenaed someone. That person does not have the right to executive privilege because the White House itself has not exercised that right, and so therefore they could come down there if they don't want to incriminate themselves. They can bring a lawyer, and then they can just they don't even need a lawyer. They can just say, "I'm pleading the fifth."
Bizarre is that the FBI has already stated that there was no grand scheme to coordinate some violent insurrection.
Well, that they could find, because there's limitations on how far they can look without a congressionally convened committee.
By Donald Trump, you, or anyone else. So they've already shared the conclusion, but the Democrats need the process. I made the point in the Rules Committee.
You mean the legal process that is legal and a process? That you must go through the process that is legal.
Democrats had a reconciliation deal. If they had an infrastructure bill, there would be no talk of Steve Bannon this week.
Oh, no. Guess what? If they'd have solved these earlier, they'd be all in on this. This is all you would be hearing about. The Democrats would only be talking about dragging these assholes in front of it. If they'd nailed down the reconciliation bill and the infrastructure bill, and when they vote on it, by the way, you don't think the next thing is, as far as talking points, shitting on Meadows and everybody involved on January 5th? Are you kidding me?
Be focused on their agenda, but they need you, Steve. They need you because they don't have anything to actually deliver to.
They need you because they have too much soap.
Voters, and so they have to scare people, and my belief is that inspiration
and the best way to scare people is bring Steve Bannon somewhere.
will certainly overwhelm this attempt at deception and division that we see from House Democrats.
You've had some pretty perceptive comments about where they stand in this legislation, both on the infrastructure, more importantly on the 3.5 trillion, how complicated
2 trillion
it is. And I think you've made the case that
it's still infrastructure week from Trump's term
didn't work for them. It worked against them, that they're ossified. Explain to this audience why they're so jammed up.
This is the whole thing. Like, say what you said again, but shorter, because I need to make 3 clips, and then it'll make them say one more sentence.
Spending all their time. For us, it's great. Every day we're just hammering. You're the first time we've ever had anybody here to talk about it, because we love the fact that they're over there spending time on this. We're hammering every day to.
Do you? Oh, just wait. If you love it, then show the fuck up.
To kill this illegitimate.
I don't have a haircut. My hair's back in a ponytail.
Regime in the crib. And I don't care if Benny Thompson and little Jimmy Raskin don't like that. That's our purpose, okay? Our purpose is opposition. And we're opposition to this radical regime. And every day we put up information. Hey, guess what? It's working, because you see the number.
Yeah, no, it isn't. This has nothing to do with what you do every day. Nobody gives a rat fuck. That's why this is all about the 5th and the 6th, and maybe part of the 4th of January. They don't give a shit about what you've been doing the rest of the time. Total waste of time, honestly. And the only reason they want Bannon is he is the low-hanging rotten fruit that leads to the fact that Trump was engaged in conversations on that day with people that were coordinating it.
Are cratering. But Congressman Gates, why is it, with everything, how complicated this legislation is, why is it doesn't seem like they're doing any work on it? Is that just a perception from the outside, or what's happening? Give us some inside baseball.
Well, Democrats are stuck in the mud because the organizing principle of the Democrat majorities that exist in Congress today are driven by solely one thing: opposition to Donald Trump.
Well, obviously not, because they passed the largest rescue package in American history. They passed the infrastructure bill, it went to the Senate, and now it's just going for the final vote in the House, which it will pass. And then that's just done. They didn't even do any material changes in it. So that'll go straight to the president's desk for signing as soon as they do it. The recon package will end up being about $2 trillion and will jumpstart some processes, but they're still doing that. This has nothing to do with Donald Trump at all.
As if there is some unifying ideology or some unifying promise that they made to their voters. They were simply just there to oppose Trump. Well, they're kind of like the dog that caught the car right now, because they have all of the levers of government at their disposal, but they don't know what to do with them. I mean, they have no bill. They have nothing to run on. They have nothing to say that they've done for the American people.
Well, we are out of Afghanistan, for the record. And we do have like 70% of Americans are vaccinated now, and there's a plan for children to get vaccinated as well, and that's working out. And of course, there is an infrastructure bill that's passed the Senate with 17 votes that will just need one final vote in the House, and then it'll get signed. And then, of course, the reconciliation bill has a lot of great stuff in it, and it's going to end up being, like I said, around a little under $2 trillion for that, but it'll get passed as well. And then by Christmas, you guys will be going, it's a war on Christmas.
You know what? This has got a kind of interesting, like 2004 Bush-Cheney energy to it. Remember at the time, George Bush had like the No Child Left Behind bill that was wildly unpopular with both parties. And so they ran after 9/11, not on legislative activity for the people, but they ran to scare people. That like John Kerry was like super scary, and actually he probably was. And so that was probably a good decision. But
so it's a great conversation. You guys understand what he's saying.
Voters, but that same pattern recognition, that Bush-Cheney really imperative to...
Yes. Biden-Harris are the Bush-Cheney of free college tuition, community college tuition.
Away from governance and toward frightening people is now what you see kind of Cheney and the other Democrats doing.
Yes, and that is a good question, chat room. How does Matt Gaetz feel about leaving children behind? Obviously, he believes in flying them across state lines. In some cases, allegedly.
And it's quite something that they think that, like, to save democracy, they have to, advance these criminal contempt endeavors. They have to move.
Well, they don't. They don't have to do it. It's required. These guys, the guy you're talking to could actually just go down there and fucking talk. If he's got something to say, and he's not afraid to say it. I mean, the under oath thing, that's probably the problem, isn't it? It's the whole under oath thing. Yeah.
Toward these.
He's not, just to clarify, Steve Bannon's not under oath when he does this show. Should I feel like I should go under oath when I begin my show, I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Also comedy.
Referrals. And a real important constitutional question is whether or not developing a criminal referral is a proper function for a standing or even a select legislative committee.
Well, yeah. Because it's a legally convened committee that has subpoena power, and the subpoenas are being ignored.
Congress is constrained by its legislative powers and its powers of oversight. And of course, if we come across people that commit crimes, we send referrals. I've done plenty of that to the Jeff Sessions Justice Department that was sort of asleep at the wheel. But the whole purpose...
Yeah, who picked that guy? Whoever hired that asshole just can't... He's like, I don't know who that guy was, but he clearly does not know the best people.
Of the January 6th committee is to engage in criminal referrals against people they don't like. And if you're watching this podcast...
Well, in all fairness, no one likes Steve Bannon. Like, nobody. The only ways you can tell Steve Bannon is not insane is that Steve Bannon doesn't like Steve Bannon.
You think, well, maybe they come for Meadows or Bannon or, people that are well known like Kevin McCarthy or Matt Gaetz or Jim Jordan, maybe.
Yeah, but then it's a slippery slope to them just like snatching up maggots off the street and making them testify against their will about how they felt about the 6th.
Going to be safe, but the tell that they're coming after regular folks is the IRS rule that they plan to enact.
Which they aren't enacting and has nothing to do with this.
Where every transaction over $600 now is subject to federal scrutiny. So
No. A bank had under that original rule was that any bank that had more than $600 worth of activity in it had to be, they had to make the IRS aware of it. Not every transaction, $600. Just the fact that an account had more than that. Now it's at $10,000.
Talk about our role as the opposition pushing back. It's always important to recognize what the opposition or what the government.
By the way, was your concern, Matt, that some of your Venmo activity was around $600? Is that the issue? That's the issue, isn't it? That's it.
In fact, doing right now, and they're trying to chew up dissenters with criminal process.
Well, first of all, Steve Bannon already looks chewed up.
You mentioned, and you're a lawyer, so your language is very precise. You said Cheney and other Democrats. What do you mean by that? I heard she went off on leadership today. Can you explain what happened?
Well, I mean, look, Liz Cheney is acting in concert with Benny Thompson and Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi.
And the law.
On all these matters. And frankly,
and the Constitution.
Travesty that we haven't kicked her out of the Republican conference right alongside her little buddy Adam Kinzinger, because
the Biden town hall is starting. Okay, well, understood. If you want to jump over to that, I completely understand. I won't go to it because it's CNN. If you guys want to watch it later, I will. I have a couple of other stories that I want to do, and I'll keep it tight tonight because I started later, and also Summer and I are going to a football game.
They are literally scheming to try to put preservation demands on the phone records of colleagues, and really to,
just colleagues, just anybody's. Your grandmother and I was colleagues. Next thing you know, he's on top of me in woodshed, pumping and a sweating. Anybody know what movie that's from? So it's just because people are colleagues. Because technically speaking, Liz Cheney is a colleague of yours. She's a Republican. She's in the House. She's part of the Republican House. So that would make her a colleague of yours. Although they don't seem to be looking into her records because she didn't get phone calls from Trump on the day or lie about it like Jim Jordan did.
Really to try to, I think, weaponize the Congress and law enforcement against those they don't agree with politically. So, Liz Cheney can't go back to Wyoming because she's not very popular there at all.
And you can't go back to Wyoming because everybody there hates you. And I think any city in Wyoming is technically 500 yards from a school.
And so she's seeking to become this kind of this mythological creature of the Beltway. And it was quite stunning to see the Democrats just fawning all over her. But for the
out of just amazement that any Republicans actually stick to the Constitution at all.
Purpose of this review, we have to look at what their true objective is. It's to distract from their failures. It's to draw our eyes away from the fact that they can't even bring the far left together with the farther left. And it's also to try to...
The far left and the farther left. I see everybody who's left of I guess Liz Cheney's dad is far left or a lefty left, far lefty left.
Mere people who were engaged in promoting the America First agenda, because the big fear for Liz Cheney and the other Democrats is that our America First principles will remain the guiding principles of the Republican Party, because if
which is what? Oh, yes. Like any negotiation you engage in, the first bargaining chip you will use is America. That's what America First means, by the way, in case you ever hear them say that. What they mean by America First is anytime we need to sell something or destroy something to have our way, the first thing we're going to sell or destroy is America. That's America First. What's first on the chopping block, according to Matt Gaetz and his crew? America.
Republican Party goes back to the establishment, Democrats will be ruling forever because we'll have nothing to inspire our voters. We have to make...
Yes, we must inspire them by destroying our democracy. Nothing is more inspirational than the destruction of our own country.
An America First focus, that's what you and I fight for. That's what Jim Jordan fights for. And it's one of the reasons we get targeted.
And you're going to be fighting over soap soon.
I want to go about Merrick Garland. Give our audience some inside baseball. You're saying the Attorney General is coming up tomorrow, and you've said for a while this is all a setup. They'll do the committee one night, the rules the next after.
It's not a set. It's the process. It's actually how it works when you have a functioning government. This is the rules.
Bring the AG up and then have the vote in the House. So walk us through why was he coming up to Capitol Hill? What was he supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
To talk about this particular thing and to talk about the Justice Department.
Merrick Garland's appearance before the House Judiciary Committee tomorrow has been purposefully synced with the actions that you saw in the Rules Committee today and the votes that will occur to hold you in contempt of.
Which, by the way, he didn't say what Matt Gaetz said he was going to say, just for the record. Hey, hello, Australia. Hi, Carrie.
That is all being stitched together because they're trying to create a wholly enclosed ecosystem of the political persecution in the Congress.
Yes, they're trying to establish these things as self-evident that all men are created equal, and it's almost like they're having a constitutional cage they're putting all their
and the enforcement tools of the Department of Justice. I've often said one of the scariest things that I've observed is that the FBI really has become the enforcement wing of the Democratic Party in a lot of circumstances. I mean, heck.
Yeah, it's weird. It's almost like, or you could read it as the Republican Party has gone so far off the deep end that they are in violation of federal laws so frequently that even if the Democrats didn't want the FBI to go after them, they would have a legal obligation to do so because it's often, as I've said, the Republican Party itself is a criminal organization.
Called me crazy when I said the FBI was out to get Trump, and now you have the evidence that an FBI lawyer changed email contents before a secret court in order to gain authorities that wouldn't otherwise exist against,
which actually let Carter Page off the hook.
People that might have been in the orbit of the former president. So
people who might have been in the orbit of the former, Carter Page, the single dumbest person working in the Trump orbit, and the changes made in that FISA warrant actually made it less likely that they would continue his warrant and his surveillance warrant, and yet they still did.
That is really the fully enclosed ecosystem. Have Congress send out these subpoenas and engage in this investigative work, but the framers never gave Congress the ability to actually go and prosecute people or throw people behind bars, and probably thank goodness they didn't. And so now that unity,
or you guys would have done it a long time ago with like racial activists and women's rights activists.
Purpose with Benny Thompson and the Justice Department is frankly very different than what you saw when Republicans held control. I mean, when we had the levers of power, when you were sitting in the White House,
we did fuck all with it. We tried, but we didn't know how things worked.
I was on the majority in the Judiciary Committee. We had a justice.
Well, technically, Mark, yes, Junior, Don Jr. is a moron, but Carter Page was effectively involved in the actual administrative acts that was going on for a time, anyways, at least during the transition. That's what I was talking about. Don Jr. was supposed to be outside of that, even though he wasn't. But point taken.
That was very recalcitrant, that was resistant to any referrals or any information that we would provide them, because Jeff Sessions went over there and got Stockholm syndrome, became sympathetic with his captors at the Justice Department. Now, or decided to follow the law, which I know sounds awful. You have is Merrick Garland, possibly an axe to grind vis-a-vis what went on with McConnell and the Supreme.
Why? Why would he have an axe to grind? What would be the problem there? I can't imagine. Whatever did the Republicans do to Merrick Garland's career that would make, obviously, no harm, no foul. It's a natural thing.
And I believe that Benny Thompson's proclamations of criminal referrals demonstrate true foreshadowing of what's to come, and that Benny Thompson already knows today how those criminal referrals will be received.
Well, because they fashion them based on the law, and they know that the law will actually stand up to scrutiny. So they will give it to Merrick Garland, and he will look at it in terms of the law, and it will stand up to constitutional muster, and there are no protections given by the White House. So yeah, he knows they'll work. Unlike Trump, who would sign executive orders and they filled in the details later.
between Benny Thompson
and they were still not functional. They still didn't, even though they were supposed to fill in the details later, they still didn't actually do anything.
and the Justice Department, certainly something we're going to want to review in the coming days and weeks.
Did you think
Review? Oh, you mean come on Steve Bannon's waste of time?
Biden gave the game away when he was on the lawn and interviewed and said, yeah, they ought to be prosecuted? Do you think he'd already worked through this?
Well, he could look at what happened and then he knows the law, and he's been in the Senate and in the House. So he knows the law. Yes.
What you're implying?
Well, Biden is gaslighting the Justice Department, right? Because now it's far more difficult for the Justice Department to throw its hands in the air and say, this is all a political squabble, which actually is what it is, because Biden is out there gaslighting.
Well, how? I mean, they're just being called as witnesses. How are they being gaslit? It's easy to show up and, I've often said, the movie Gaslight itself would have been ruined by a neighbor who gave a shit.
Them to engage in
anybody, if they were actually able to talk to someone and go, I think my husband's trying to drive me insane by saying things are happening that aren't. Really? Okay. Well, I'll pay attention. Thanks very much. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Let's call the cops.
criminal process.
Congressman Gates, what is you got this podcast on fire. Go through all the information. How do people follow you on social media?
Yeah, sell it, baby, sell it.
How did he get to this podcast that's produced by the former producer?
Did he just say fuck all? Did I not hear that? What?
The War Room.
Yeah.
Vish.
Or he just in general said fuck all, right?
We are very lucky to have some of the War Room's best come and work on my congressional staff.
Oh, that's interesting. Sorry, what? Sorry, you who?
Former producer of the War Room, Vish.
We are very lucky to have some of the War Room's best come and work on my congressional staff. What I can tell you is our podcast is called Firebrand. It's released every.
Oh, that'll be interesting. Once we get Steve Bannon's phone records. Well, shit. That is a new detail. That's fascinating to me. That the one of the people who worked on Steve Bannon's War Room works either on his podcast with and around his staff in regard to the podcast itself, or just as a general staff member, which is a huge fucking giveaway, and also explains a lot why Matt Gaetz gives so much of a shit about protecting Steve Bannon, because he is, as he always is, protecting himself. Holy shit. Did you guys know that up until now? Like, I don't normally watch this shit. We just found out live, essentially, that one of his staffers who works on his podcast and in his staff in general, I guess, they're worked on Steve Bannon's podcast on the War Room, and they are interlinked. Holy shit. It explains so much. Talk about gaslighting. The whole essence of this and that bullshit gathering when he was talking earlier, on the thing he posted on his own site, was this idea that this is a waste of time. This is just, we're wasting the people's time and Congress's time. This is nothing. This is a nothing burger. We're just using this. This is a political axe to grind, and you're attacking this poor person. And by attacking Steve Bannon, you're telling everybody that you're attacking. You could attack anyone in the entire country. Everybody's up for grabs in this situation. Meanwhile, at the tail end of this bullshit, we find out that this fucker hired someone who used to work for this fucker probably around the time that January 5th and 6th was happening. So there's an overlap in conversation. So when he's protecting Steve Bannon from having to come and testify, he's got skin in the game even further than we thought. I mean, beyond the fact that this, he's been kissing Trump's ass and he's been protecting the January 6th insurrectionists in general, we now know that these dudes are permanently leg wrestling. They are asexually reproducing worms sucking on each other's ends. Fucking hell. Listen to that again, real quick. Run that by me again, dipshit.
to throw its hands in the air and say, this is all a political squabble, which actually
all a political squabble. Remember that. This is all just politics. He's just here to talk about politics.
What it is, because Biden is out there gaslighting them to engage in criminal process.
He's gaslighting them to get them to engage in criminal process. He's just gaslighting them. Biden is which, by the way, this makes no fucking sense whatsoever. There's no gaslighting in this at all. But okay.
Congressman Gates, you got this podcast on fire. Go through all the information. How do people follow you on social media? How do they get to this podcast that's produced by the former producer of the War Room, Vish?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Who? Vish somebody?
We are very lucky to have some of the War Room's best come and work on my congressional staff. What I can tell you is,
all right. So not only is his podcast produced by a former podcast producer on there, who's obviously all in together, but other members now. This isn't just that dude. Multiple people who have worked on Steve Bannon's, War Room have come to work on Gates's staff.
Podcast is called,
which sounds fucking disgusting. I'm sorry for saying Matt Gates's staff.
Firebrand. It's released every Thursday morning. The way that most folks enjoy it is on Rumble. So make sure you get on Rumble so that you can
enjoy it the way they enjoy it.
That. And, the one thing I regret, Steve, is that I lamented to my Democrat colleagues in committee today, for most Americans, one of the first 100 things they think of when they wake up in the morning probably isn't Steve Bannon and the War Room podcast. People are probably thinking about their kids, their future, their jobs, their security.
Yeah, most of us also don't wake up every morning thinking about like robberies and assaults and car thefts and shit like that. That's why we have cops. Those folks get up every morning and they deal with that stuff. So we can get up and deal with our own lives. And in this particular case, Congress is acting as a cop around our democracy, so we don't have to wake up every morning and write a fucking letter every time.
And when I got back to my office, I had a lot of furrowed brows and scowls from my staff because, in fact, Steve Bannon's War Room podcast is one of the first 100 things that many of them think of when they get up in the morning. But my podcast...
Right, because you guys are forever linked, and this is absolutely a conspiracy.
This is Firebrand. It's a great way to get yourself geared up for Thursday's War Room.
Congressman, thank you very much. And by the way, it was incredibly entertaining seeing you taking on little Jamie Raskin today. Very, very, very.
No, it wasn't. It was dull, quite frankly. But that's interesting to me. Hang on one second. So let's see. What's on here? Firebrand. Is that the name of his fucking... Oh, my God. Look at this bullshit. Episode 9, January 6th. This is September 3rd. Okay, when's this? These are and he posted this clip on his own thing. The weaponized DOJ. How are we going to enjoy this? DOJ refuses to arrest man who traveled D.C. to kill Matt Gaetz. Oh, that's... By the way, did you guys see this part? When he went to the floor and said... Somebody's trying to kill me.
I thank the gentleman for yielding because I think someone may be trying to kill me. And if they...
Let me guess. The father of a 17-year-old girl. No? All right.
Successful, I would like my constituents and my family...
Was fuck stain taken. Yeah, he wanted that one, but he had to stick with Firebrand.
To know who stopped their...
By the way, is there a liquid brand? All right.
Best. Madam Speaker, on October 8th, 2021, a Twitter handle styled CIA Bob is at your door tweeted to...
At CIA Bob is at your door? So it's a little belabored, isn't it? All right.
At Rep. Matt Gaetz. Looky here, pal. I lived in Portland. Portland has ordered a hit on you. I accepted the contract. Have a good day. Following...
For the record, by the way, if Portland orders a hit on you, it's a delivery of donuts. I'm just saying. They come over. The most violent thing they do to you is rub granola in your crack. It's rude, but, it's all organic. And, unless you have an allergy, you're fine.
Tweet this individual traveled to Washington, D.C., and the Capitol Police...
by the way, in a diesel van that smelled like French fries.
recommended his arrest. That's information that was just shared with me by the Investigations and Threat Assessment section of the Protective Services Bureau, and specifically George DeCesso. And George shared
of the Capitol Police, who you were arguing should not have an intelligence service in its protection of Congress people, because he was one of the fuckers who went to the floor who said, why are they expanding the Capitol Police to other areas? This is clearly governmental overreach.
Me that the Capitol Police recommended the arrest of this individual, and that the Department of Justice refused to do so, declined to do so. And on the eve of the Attorney General testifying before the Judiciary Committee tomorrow.
Just so sad. The nerve. Let's see. CIA Bob is at your door. Let's see. Well, he did have his account suspended, so there's that. But if you look at this stuff, it says, latest tweets from CIA Bob, I fight evil daily. That's what he said. Matt Gaetz revealed his death threat. This is on Reddit. DOJ allegedly refused to arrest maniac who traveled to D.C. A maniac who fights evil daily. He's even more nuts. The thing, man travels from, okay. Noledia? All right. Man travels from Portland to kill Matt Gaetz. DOJ yawns. Okay. Gaetz floors me. Somebody may be trying to kill me. Reveals how threat on his life was ignored by the DOJ. Is this it? Is this the dude? Images here. This is CIA Bob is at your door. He's a very scary dude. Is that it? These are the three pictures, and this is the guy. And that'll be suspended. Still saying suspended account. Learn more. Okay, that's not happening. Okay. Nope. So that's CIA Bob, by the way, who is fighting evil daily. Let's see. That's House Biden. Okay, hold on. Let's see. We go back. Joe, my God, LGBT ability to Madam Speaker, and the Twitter handle style. Look here, pal. I live in Portland. Someone may be trying to kill me. Let's see. This is the. I say DOJ. Okay, this is AM greatness. Allegedly refused to arrest maniac who traveled to D.C. Well, alleged maniac, for the record, who traveled to D.C. to allegedly kill Matt Gaetz after the Capitol Police allegedly recommended it. A deranged lefty, allegedly, traveled to D.C. after stating his desire on social media to kill Matt Gaetz. After the Capitol Police recommended he be arrested, the Biden Justice Department refused to do so. Gaetz alleged on the House floor on Wednesday. So all of this previous stuff is alleged. I think somebody may be trying to kill me. This is the one. Look, here, pal. I live in Portland. Portland is ordered. I accept the contract. Have a good day. And this is the picture that he was that a GIF? Which GIF is that? The individual also tweeted that he planned to wipe Gaetz off the surface of the earth. I'm going to wipe you off the surface of the earth. Have a good day. And then a clapping thing. Subsequent tweets said, you will meet me, run and hide. Last rites are according to me. Tag Gaetz in a tweet. By the way, I don't support violence or threats to violence at all. For the record, Twitter suspended his account Thursday morning for violating the platform's rules. That is his picture. Gaetz said the following threatening tweets. The congressman said he's learned from the investigation threat assessment that he's going to go to George DeCesso. He explained that he told him the Capitol Police recommended the arrest. Is yet another example of the DOJ having a double standard. This is this part. Just a little over 4 years ago, as you remember, a left-wing activist from Belleville, shooting there, blah, blah, blah. James Hodgkins shot U.S. Majority Whip Steve Scalise and Crystal Griner. Agreed. But, okay, so this guy, and curiously enough, the DOJ wouldn't be responsible for this thing. Obviously, if the threats are direct, I mean, I guess the FBI, or they would refer it to the FBI, or you call the FBI, or the DOJ wouldn't. I don't know what step he's missing.
It is just yet another example of the Department of Justice having a double standard. If my name weren't Gaetz, if it were Omar or Tlaib, you bet this person would have been arrested.
Yeah, because they never receive death threats that aren't followed up.
That's what the Capitol Police recommended, but the Department of Justice doesn't seem to care so much when it's Republicans.
That's it. That's the whole thing. That's everything, by the way. And this is the other clip here or whatever. We'll dig into some of this stuff because I have no idea. Is this just audio? Hold on.
Congressman Matt Gaetz.
Matt Gaetz was one of the very few members in the entire Congress who bothered to stand up against permanent Washington on behalf of his constituents.
Matt Gaetz right now, he's a problem for the Democratic Party, and he can cause a lot of hiccups in passing of laws. So we're going to keep running those stories to keep hurting him.
If you stand for the flag and kneel in prayer, if you want to build America up and not burn her to the ground, then welcome, my fellow patriots. You are in the right place. This is the movement for you.
You ever watch this guy on television?
Ew. You couldn't find what a dick move to get a picture of yourself where you've obviously fixed this part of your jaw to make it look more striking. That's a little bit of Photoshop. But what'd you do? Add that to Trump's face? Jesus Christ, he looks like he's melting.
It's like a machine, Matt Gaetz.
I'm a canceled man in some corners.
All right, whatever. Yeah. Okay, so he does do it. It is on camera.
Many
in everything but these militia groups that he pretends.
And we'll go through. We'll pick one of these someday. But I mean, it's obviously this is just basically Steve Bannon's podcast, his War Room podcast, with a little bit of gel added to it. All right, so now we've been trying to figure out what the hell has been going on with the Bongino. Every time he explains something, it gets worse. So this time he's on Fox. Bongino issues powerful call to action as he fights vaccine mandate. By the way, he's doing this. This clip is from him on Fox, where they have a vaccine mandate. So police officers forced to choose job or jab. Job. Sorry. Yeah. Here we go.
Unfiltered. It's Dan Bongino. Dan.
Are you sure that's his name? Somebody should really put like his logo up behind him with a lot of times, just in case people get confused. And by the way, thanks for putting on a jacket over your T-shirt like you're a comedian in 1987.
Great to have you. You were one of these human beings, actually.
Or a bouncer at a bar called Douchies.
Dan, you are one of these human beings. You, of course, served here in New York City. You
Citation needed.
Served the Secret Service. And here today, you are a commentator, a great one at that. And you've chosen to take a stand against vaccine mandates at your company, Cumulus Media. Tell me what you make of all these mandates, their cost, and why you're making this stand.
And why you're on Fox today, where they have a mandate, and you repeatedly show up on Fox where they have a mandate, and where this guy works where they have a mandate and hasn't quit in protest either. So basically you're calling this guy an asshole. I don't even know who he is. And I agree with you. But then it's the only thing Bongino and I agree on is that this dude, whoever he is, because he's on Fox and in studio, is obviously weak and doesn't believe in freedom, hates America, and is here just to destroy the Constitution as he wipes his ass with it every day by showing up at a place where they have a vaccine mandate. And of course, he as a paid contributor on Fox News is showing up, to also contribute to help them sell toilet paper. Right.
Well, I'm making the stand, one, and I should disclose, as I have often, it's not a secret, I've said it many times on the air, I'm vaccinated. I had lymphoma, which is a cancer of the immune system. Things are okay now, but I was as high risk as they get. I took the shot.
Well, not really, but appreciated that you talk about that. Also, you couldn't work at Fox if you didn't get it.
On advice of an oncologist and doctor, but that's the point, Will, isn't it? That situation, thank God, was unique to me. I mean, not everybody has lymphoma. Again, thank the Lord, and I'm not using his name in vain. That was my unique situation, and a consultation after.
Well, yes, you are, because you don't actually care from a religious standpoint. You are on Fox, participating in faux religiosity. So that is the very definition. Just saying the word it's not like a portrait of Muhammad where you can't make a graven image.
that I had with a very intelligent doctor who's a personal friend of mine. This was never, however, ever about a vaccine. You may say, of course, it's a vaccine mandate. No. Let me disabuse anyone out there.
Well, it's technically a testing mandate for depending on the size of the company.
This has nothing to do with the vaccine. The left hated the vaccine when Donald Trump.
No, they didn't. They just weren't going to take it on his say-so alone. He'll probably bring up Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris's statement is, if the scientists say it's okay, of course I'm going to take it. If Donald Trump just comes out and says take the vaccine, I'm not going on his fucking word. I'm waiting for the scientists to say so, which they did and she did, which we all did, except for Trump's followers who won't follow the scientists even when he tells them to.
Operation created these vaccines. The left, it's still out there. You can go watch it and read their tweets. They said they'd never take it. They don't trust it.
No, they didn't. And no, we didn't. They don't trust just his say-so. But again, we go back to Dan Bongino has a problem with reading. It's very difficult. He has a lot of challenges. We don't know if they're related to the fact that, maybe it's a side effect of the vaccine. It could be that, he used ivermectin eye drops. Who can say?
And then they flipped on a dime when Joe Biden waltzed his way into the Oval Office, and all of a sudden...
Well, no, a bunch of people were taking it, especially if they were high risk, or getting their relatives to take it before Biden came into office. When it was first being made available, they were just limited supplies. Everybody was lining up to do it once the FDA gave it emergency use authorization. But again, they weren't just going to go on Trump's word. Now, you believe in taking Trump's word for everything, except, of course, getting people to take the vaccine.
You're a heretic if you dare ask questions. And one more thing here. Listen, we run this country. This is our country. We built it. We built it. We powered.
Did you? You must be exhausted. How do you ever find time to sleep? You built it, did you? Nobody else did? Who's we? You mean Americans? You mean the other people you're fucking talking about?
We run it. This is our country. We outnumber.
Well, yeah, we have a democracy. We choose our leadership, and the majority chose Joe Biden this time around. So that's how we run it, actually. We have representational government. We hire people to represent our interests by voting. Yeah.
These people work for us. If we stand in solidarity and say, my body is mine, it was given to me by God, it was not a ward and is not a ward.
Well, it was loaned to you. I don't think it was given to you or whatever. You get to use it for a short time. You can have a little bit of dust for a few years, but it goes back to the dust thing when you're done.
The state, I will determine what goes in it and what does not go in it via some injection.
Right. Yeah, you can do that. Knock yourself out. But you don't also get to determine you're not going to do something that's required to go someplace or do something. No shoes, no shirt, no service, fuckhead.
And a vaccine. When we stand in solidarity, there is nothing they can do.
Well, technically, I wouldn't say stand in solidarity. More like get proned in solidarity by some overworked nurses as they have to intubate you.
You know, Will, they want us to genuflect in front of them, but is
that what you're doing? Thank you for writing it. I was very confused. Host of Unfiltered. Yes, it's certainly unfiltered by logic and common sense and a consideration of reality.
Person stands and a second and a third person joins them. Eventually they realize 51% of people standing and the outcasts are the ones on their knees. I'm not getting on my knees. No.
Easy. No one is asking you to get on your knees except Donald Trump, and that's why yours are dirty. We get it.
No one else should get on their darn knees either. It's your body, and I stood up for these people.
Well, yeah, stand up for your bodily autonomy, but don't expect that if you stand for your bodily autonomy, that means you can go in other people's spaces that they have set rules for themselves, especially by either electing governmental representatives that set the rules that lean in the direction that they're doing by overwhelming numbers. And then, of course, private institutions who care about their other customers and their employees enough to let some fucko come in there and carry a fake vaccine card or lie about it. Yeah, you got all the have bodily autonomy. Go out in the fucking woods and build a Unabomber shack and live in there. Nobody is stopping you.
I have leverage and I have the power to do it. And I have a voice, and I'm not going to forfeit this opportunity and let them lie.
Well, technically you are, because you said you're giving up your radio show because Cumulus have rules about this. So you're giving up that opportunity. Technically.
Their life and get their asses kicked. I'm sorry. These people got to sit down and explain to their kids why they're out of a job because they have natural immunity, and some company decided to play Dr. Fauci, who can't seem to get his head out of his own ass.
Well, no, there's a movement. Start that idea. The people who've had it already have natural immunity, and therefore they should be allowed to work without getting vaccinated. They should follow science on that. That's not what this is. That's not what those people are arguing. This isn't about people who've already had COVID. This is about people who haven't had COVID yet and aren't going to get the vaccine and are in the perfect window for interacting with people while spreading the disease.
And get his own story straight. So I'm really sorry. It's time we all stood up. And one more thing, if I may.
Well, you are sitting, and you may not. And also, is this a funny way to announce that you are quitting Cumulus Radio? Oh, wait, you're not? That's interesting.
Don't be afraid. Folks, we come on the air and I do it myself. We say, I'm not anti-vax. Okay? Why do we even say that? That's a capitulation to the left. You may be anti.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry, what?
Vax one day. You know what? You may come out and there may be a vaccine for another disease that you read about.
Hang on a second. You may be anti-vax one day. This is healthy. Sorry. See the look in this dude's face right now? You're going into getting us shut down territory.
You may
what
be
now?
Anti-vax one day. You know what? You may come out and there may be a vaccine for another disease that you read about, and the research doesn't work out. It is perfectly I'm not.
Well, that wouldn't make you anti-vax. That would make you vaccine hesitant about a new vaccine. That wouldn't make you anti-vax means no vaccines. You don't believe in vaccination, that you think that all vaccines are bad. That's the situation that a lot of people that are, like the Robert Kennedys of the world, that's what they're doing. That's what they're talking about. They're not for some vaccines. They're for none of them. You're not anti-vax if you're vaccine hesitant about a new one. You can make the case about that hesitancy, and you can make, you can limit your own behavior until you decide you either want to take on the risk, and there's a legal way that you can do that, or you can get vaccinated. But that didn't make you anti-vax, dum-dum.
Anti-this vax. I took it. Let me be specific on that. But we do this, and it's a capitulation to the left. We don't owe them squat.
Why the fuck is it a capitulation to the left? It's a clarification, one would think. And by the way, it's a capitulation to Fox News is what it is, because if you don't get that shot, then you can't go to Fox. I mean, obviously you're not in the studio today. You're doing this from your crawl space or wherever.
Don't be afraid. You have every right to read the research and say, hey, listen, this thing was sold as 90+% effectiveness and it's not. Can I get an answer why? You have every right as a...
Well, it clearly is. Hold on one second. And one of the reasons why people are concerned about it is that they feel that it was rushed because of Operation Fart Steve.
Captain's log.
Which we all know was the brainchild of the Trump administration to prove how fast they were doing something, when everyone's concern was partly that we need to get this as quick as possible, but we have to come up with other solutions until we get a vaccine, because you can't rush something like this.
Captain's log.
Just so, yeah.
Free, God-given rights, free person, big R rights to ask questions. You don't owe them squat.
Well, you kind of do. I mean, send your kids to elementary school. See if they can go without a whooping cough vaccine. You ever volunteer at your fucking kid's school? You're going to need one of those vaccines. You're not going to get whooping cough. It's not going to harm you, but you don't want to carry it to the kids because it could fuck one of them up. So you get a vaccine for something that is not going to directly harm you, because you make a choice of whether or not you want to volunteer at your kid's school. Right? Right?
You speak up and don't be afraid.
Well, you have to understand, this dude's about to lose a shit ton of money on two fronts. That's why he's panicked about this. One is his Cumulus job. He's got to turn this into a political thing, so hopefully Cumulus will back down and let him keep his job. That's why he's freaking out. That's why his eyes are like that. And the other reason, of course, is that Trump is about to launch turdruth.com, his social media network, which is going to fuck up Parler, and he's one of the investors in Parler.
Be afraid. Don't capitulate these idiots on the left.
And really quickly then, Dan.
And by the way, idiots on the left, he means the executives who own and operate Fox News, because that's the rule there.
You make the point, you point out that you are vaccinated, but your stand is a principled stand for others that work with you who arrive at a...
By the way, a stand that no one at Fox News is making for anybody who works at Fox News or for Fox News.
Different choice, an individualized choice from yours.
Make an individualized choice. You don't also have an individualized choice to have access to other spaces if people don't feel like you're safe. The fuck are you talking about? How is it? Be free, but stand out in a fucking field by yourself. How is it anybody else's responsibility to let you spread a disease because you just don't feel like, you should be made to prevent that spread to anybody else? What the fuck?
That's not the definition of principle. I do not know what is. So let's just...
Well, you do, technically speaking, in all deference, you do not know what is, because you work at Fox, where they have a strict vaccine mandate. No one who works there can have it. Look at Bongino. He's feeling it right now. He knows exactly what I'm saying. And so you're basically filleting him while bullshitting yourself for a living. That's got to be weird.
A ribbon on this. You said it's not about the vaccine, Dan. You point out the hypocrisy of their position when President Trump was in office. So what then is it about?
Well, when he was in office, technically speaking, there wasn't a vaccine until after the election anyways. And the concern was obviously that he was going to say it was fine before the FDA made its approval. And this was before we had it, before it came out, and the idea was he was going to sell it whether the scientists believed it was ready or not, because he wanted it out before the election, because he thought that's the way to re-election. So if he could just get it out on his timeline, not science's timeline, we just go ahead with it.
And
this is about the left's wiping out of any sense of objective values. God-given big R rights, Will, it's always been. They don't like competition with the state. Anything that competes with the state, a God-given right, is an impediment, an obstacle to the left. If they can take away the biggest obstacle of all to their agenda, the idea that you have control over your own body, you're not sovereign over your own body and skin, then it's all for...
Yeah, you are. You're just not sovereign over other people's body and skin, fucko. How is this? How do they not get this? Here's the other thing, too. Maybe it isn't about spread. Maybe you don't give a rat fuck. Maybe you get vaccinated and you can spread it to other people, right? That's the idea. But you're arguing that other people don't need to get vaccinated, and you spread it to those people, and they clog up the fucking emergency room so a bus crash with a bunch of kids, there's a lot of these kids die because there's not a goddamn hospital bed for them, because it's full of fuckers that follow you down some alleyway that you don't even go down yourself. That's the part of this that bugs me, because let's say you get vaccinated. It lowers your chance of ending up in the hospital. That's the primary thing that the vaccine does. You can still get it. Like I said, my dad and my stepmother are both double vaccinated. They were about to get their booster shots and they caught it or whatever. And they're puny right now, but they're not in the fucking hospital. And they're not on a ventilator. And they're not, using up monoclonal antibodies and other shit that have to be used for other people who can't take the vaccine, who have to go in. And they're not taking up a hospital bed that somebody who's been in a car accident or has a stroke or a heart attack has to use. This fucker doesn't give a shit about hospitals being over capacity. And that's, by the way, largely what the concern about COVID has always been about. The overwhelming of our medical system, because there's a lot of reasons people get sick, a lot of reasons why people end up in the hospital. And if every hospital's ICU is overrun with a contagious disease that is very dangerous, then the people who are involved in car accidents while life continues to go on, or have heart attacks or strokes or medical emergencies because of diabetes or any number of things, can't go to the fucking hospital because that very place might kill them like a rando staph infection. It's This is a total disregard for the safety and well-being of people beyond fucking COVID.
Well, it's lost.
If the hospitals are full of COVID patients, in deference to his cancer diagnosis, a lot of early stage cancer diagnoses were ignored or missed because people couldn't go to the hospital, and they had to stop elective procedures and certain medical appointments, and people let stuff go because the hospitals were fucking full of COVID patients. And if you're already on your heels health-wise, going to a fucking hospital full of that is overwhelmed by COVID is more dangerous. So people were weighing that against going and getting their health checked. And this asshole is arguing for more of that, and especially in red states, because that's where this shit is happening. This is not happening in the bluest of blue cities. Even in the blue states where it's happening, where their numbers are up a little compared to other places statistically, it's because of the red areas, the Stocktons, the Devin Nunes districts of California that caused this. Even in the blue states, these are just the rampant Republican areas are the ones that drive up the numbers in those areas, because everywhere else they're handling it. But in the red states themselves that are overwhelmingly Trump states, these are the ones that are spiking. And while these things are spiking, and while there is a 80-25 percentage of going to the hospital and ending up dead zone of things, that 20% of people that get COVID that could end up, that have comorbidities, or they're obese, or they have kidney issues, or they're, immunological difficulties, or that they know or don't know about, that end up in the fucking hospital, take up beds that are not there for car crash victims and stroke victims and heart attack victims and people with, aneurysms and bloodborne diseases and fucking, wandering through a swamp and having some sort of parasite wiggle up your dick and you end up in the hospital. My dad has kidney issues. My dad he does dialysis. That's exactly why. That's the scary part of this. This fucker doesn't care. He's like, I don't know, people, you get it. And, most people are healthy, so they won't end up in the hospital. Well, that's not what we're worried about. Those people spread it to people who aren't healthy. 60% of Americans are obese or overweight. If you are obese or overweight, not only do you have a higher chance of getting hospitalized, which is why our numbers in the States can be higher than some other countries that have a lesser obesity problem, but also people who are overweight or obese carry a bigger viral load, so they spread it more. And look at any of the Trump gatherings, the super spreader events he's had, and the vast majority of people there are not, the MTGs who do, Christian CrossFit every goddamn day. They have comorbidities even beyond their weight issues. And if they do catch it, they're going to carry more of it throughout the rest of the fucking country. And this fucker wants that to happen more. And it's not going to happen in blue states because we're all vaccinated. Because Democrats are largely getting vaccinated, because Fauci and the CDC and the NIH gave emergency use authorization and then gave full authorization for its use after following the science. Not going on Trump's word, going by the science. And because this is an evolving threat, and because a lot of people, by the way, you know what happens when you carry a bigger viral load? Because you're overweight and or you have other comorbidities and you carry more of that viral load with you, you raise the chances that there are more mutations. So the United States is uniquely vulnerable in those kind of circumstances. And Trump's circle and the people that this fucker talks to every day on the radio are uniquely in danger from this. But this asshole is selling some version of freedom, which has nothing to do with personal responsibility, taking care of your fellow American, none of that stuff. No patriotism. All individuals, just like hyper-libertarian, fuck everybody. This is such a lie. This whole bullshit where he's beating his chest about about freedom. It's fucking embarrassing. And you know, Maddie, don't feel bad for being overweight. Just know that that's part of it. That is absolutely part of the concern, which is why we want people to, keep their weight under control as best they can, eat healthier, eat more whole foods, do all that kind of stuff. So you keep your body in good shape because of all the ancillary aspects of this, not just to your own health, but to other people's health as well. Because we love you, we want you to be around for a long fucking time. And for me, that even applies to Republicans. Every troll who's in here, who I'm telling you, there's no fucking like weird swimmers or fucking RFID chips in the goddamn vaccine. It's just a vaccine. It's an mRNA vaccine that attacks a particular spike protein on this particular disease. Now, if your idea of America First is allowing some, a lab in Wuhan to murder half the population in the United States for freedom's sake, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with you. I don't know why that's important to you. I also, and this is on a side note, I put this in the thing, I also don't understand the logic behind Bill Gates is going to kill us with a vaccine, as opposed to, because if you were really an evil genius, you would just you'd create a real disease and then only save the people who vaccinated themselves, because you could never vaccinate the majority of people quickly enough in a spreading disease, right? That talking people into getting a shot or getting it through all the processes, that's a lot of scrutiny. That's a lot of people looking at it and going, wait a second, this has got RFID chips in it. I can't even get it through the needle, right? You would think you would craft a genetically modified disease, release it into the world, and the only people you would save are people who were willing to take the vaccine. Therefore, they're on the team to be part of a functioning society, as opposed to, why would you create a situation where the disease is fake, but you create a vaccine that only kills the people who are pro-vaccine and leaves alive anti-vaxxers only? What kind of society could you possibly hope to have? I mean, at those point, what are you going to do? Soft kill the people who are vaccinated, and then you have to set up FEMA camps for the other people. It just makes no fucking sense. It's the stupidest thing ever. New World Order team. Well, we also know that the issue with the New World Order is that what was the old world order? You can't know what the New World Order is unless you know what the Old World Order. And we know what the Old World Order was: dictators, theocracies, and monarchies. The New World Order is an alliance of democracies. There's a reason why there's constantly conspiracy theories around the New World Order, or the concept in the New World Order, that is fomented and pushed by dictatorships through the internet and all kinds of other sources. Just get used to the idea. Just saying. The New World Order is an alliance of democracies. Russia hates it. China hates it. Fucking Erdogan hates it. The Saudis hate it. They hate it. They hate the idea that democracies like the United States and Great Britain and Australia and France and NATO nations and stuff are going to get together and create democracies, and sound democracies, and protect themselves against dictatorships on their borders that will fuck up democracy. That's what they're worried about. Anyways, I don't understand the plot that is supposed to exist. Maybe someone could explain it to me one day, how it'd be way easier to create some CRISPR-Cas9 evil virus and only give the vaccine to people you like. But trying to get a needle in everybody's arm is a really expensive way to wipe out the world. It just doesn't make logical sense.
Telling you this has nothing to do with the vaccine to these maniacs on the...
Yeah, it does. It has everything to do with the vaccine, dummy. Well, and technically speaking, I guess it has something to do with the disease and the fact that you fuckers want to clog up the goddamn emergency rooms. You don't want medical intervention when it comes in the form of a vaccine, but the minute you get sick and need it, you'll let somebody shove a fucking plastic hose down your throat and turn you over while you sleep through it for the next few months while they load you up with every fucking chemical they can find. All right, hold on. Look at this shit. All right. Let me see. Humor of their. Whoops. Let's see how we do this. Used on COVID patients. Let's see. Going to zero for 4 most promising dexamethasone. Let's see. COVID treatment. Let's see. The therapy is used on number of. Let's see. And I'll look at news. Hi, you're crawling on my leg. Hi, Chip. I know. Hi. What are you doing? What are you doing? Get out of there. Come here. No. Come here. Chip, come here. Get out from under my... No. Chip's under the desk. Come here, you. Come here. Come here, you. Come here. There he is. Hi. Are you... What is the problem, Mr. Man? I'm doing research. I'm trying to work. And you're just purring. You just want to fall asleep on me and you're mad. So you start messing around. He starts meowing in the night. I'm like, what is he meowing about? And then I start walking downstairs and he's like, oh, food. And then I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on with you. Why he crawls around under my desk and starts playing with things. And then I pick him up and he falls asleep in my lap. Hi, buddy. I know. Here, just stay right here. You're fine. So, okay, let's see right here. Everyone's protected against severe disease. Let's see. I have to look COVID in ICU. Oh, here's a New England Journal message. This is fun. Toxic effects from ivermectin use associated with prevention and treatment of COVID-19. You think? By the way, the idea that ivermectin may or may not help is immaterial. It's the fact that these people want to take this untested thing, and yet when they talk about the vaccines, a no-go, but ivermectin because somebody told them on a Facebook group that it'll work. Let's see. I'll see you do a image of this. Yeah. So when people end up in the fucking hospital like this, they have these giant look at these bags of shit that are going into them. You know, and you guys have seen this on the outside. They don't want a needle in their arm, but look at the fucking tubes going into these folks who end up in the hospital. And when they look at this bags of stuff that they're constantly from monoclonal antibodies and all these other things. While you got a fucking tube down your throat, they're just pouring stuff into you regularly, trying anything to keep you from fucking dying. And in a lot of cases, they have to have these outside the room you're in, because the nurses, they don't want them going in the room with you. But just look at the volume of shit that they're having to put in, like all these tubes. Like, see these little jacks that are on everything? That's how they run another IV bag of treatments and stuff into you. Look at this shit. You like, and this look at the dude they were proning in this other shot. Yeah, look at that guy. They fucking turn you over so you can breathe easier while they're running this shit into you. Look at these bags. Look at this stuff. Look at these hanging bags of other shit that they're putting into your body just to try and stabilize you. And they're like, this has never been about the vaccine. Fuck you. It's not. It's about somebody who won't take the vaccine, who it will have no negative reactions to it, having some sort of lunatic belief system put on them by you or by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or some fucko they read on Facebook. And then they end up in the hospital using all this shit when somebody who's been in a car crash can't get a goddamn bed, or somebody who needs oxygen because they have asthma or something has to sit in the fucking parking lot of the hospital. God damn, this asshole. It's fucking stupid.
Nothing. They know full well natural immunity is a biological fact, a Charlie Brown encyclopedia fact a 3-year-old knows about. It is not.
No, not necessarily. This is a moving thing. So in some cases, it will work, and it's been shown to work. But during the process of this, it was no guarantee, and reinfections were becoming a problem. And the reinfections were just as bad as the initial infection in some cases, and that was the concern. Therefore, they were saying you should get the vaccine as well so it doesn't come back again. That's what that was about. And if it shows over time that natural immunity is enough, that's one thing. But you're testing this shit on human lives while we're running out of hospital beds in neighborhoods that voted for Donald Trump.
About that. It is about taking from you every last competition to the power of the state and your idea of that you are sovereign over your own body.
Here's a thought to leave this.
Or here's an idea. Bootstrap yourself, start your own business, and if you've got under 100 employees, do whatever the fuck you want.
Conversation with Dan. If we're going to say goodbye to 40% of our firefighters, 30% of our police officers, if the number is 3%,
you're not going to lose 40 or 30% of either of those groups.
If we're going to say goodbye to the services we pay for, why do we pay for them?
Thank you, Foggy. Bill Maher won't have me on. It's a long story.
Why are we paying taxes? Dan, I always love talking.
You're paying taxes so we can have a structured vaccine rollout, and our medical system isn't overwhelmed by a bunch of libertarian fuckheads who don't give a shit if they're taking up a bed that might be better used for a child with leukemia, you asshole. P.S. You work for a company with a vaccine mandate. P.S. This dickhead is a frequent guest in studio.
Good point.
I love to hear about your principled stand. You and I will be talking more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
What principled stand, shithead? You work at Fox where they have it. You haven't walked off the job. And by the way, this dude's vaccinated. They're both vaccinated. They're both on Fox News right now. There is no principled stand. There is no situation where Dan Bongino is going, I'm not going on Fox anymore. I can't go on Fox anymore. They have a vaccine mandate. Where is the principle in any of this? This whole segment is bullshit. Bongino, you're full of shit. Whoever this dude is, you're full of shit. Chip knows it, and Chip has gassy butt. He knows it. Right? Right, Chip? Chip so just wants to just go to sleep right now. Oh my God. He's just like, dude, really? I'm so over this. I find your yelling at the camera so comforting. Chip is slowly but surely turning me into a Bond villain. Hold on.
Dr. Evil. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my underground lair.
You do realize, by the way, just for the record, that Blofeld with his cats is the first film evidence of an anxiety pet in cinema that I'm aware of. That basically he had an anxiety pet. For the record. Anyways, so can we just agree across the board that both of these assholes have zero principles, and they are arguing ferociously that they have these principles and that their principles have meaning when they're both on Fox News, which has a vaccine mandate. He's still showing up. This guy hasn't left work. They're both vaccinated, and they're like, even though I'm vaccinated, it's not about vaccines. I'm just not doing this anymore. Fuck you. He's doing this because his radio show wants to do it, and he's got some anti-vaxxers in his producer squad or some shit, and they're like, you're going to have to use a different producer. And he's like, fuck. Nobody else wants to work with me. Either that or they're just tired of you and they're just going to, this is cover for the fact that Cumulus wants to kick him to the curb and give the slot to somebody else because because Brian Kilmeade doesn't make this stupid argument every day and his blather is just as stupid. God.
It's the host of
Just fucking lazy bullshit. Jobber jab. Then quit, asshole. Quit. No one is stopping you. Fucking quit. You, this dude, whoever the fuck he is, quit your job. And then tell Dan Bongino to never come on Fox ever again because they have a mandate. Just fucking hop on over to OAN or Newsmax or just post your shit on Parler and move the fuck on. Because there is absolutely there is zero principle in this entire exchange that's allegedly about principle. It's fucking irritating. This is childish bullshit. All right, and I'm out of time. I went to full time or whatever. It's 6 o'clock. I'm gonna let you guys go because I have to go change and get ready for. Summer and I are going to a football game tonight, and tomorrow. By the way, I will be having a morning show tomorrow morning, but I will be. I won't have an afternoon show tomorrow because I will be on a plane to Madison, Wisconsin, to do the Sexy Liberal show on Saturday night, and I have to fly in the night before because I've got my radio show and I've got to drive down to Chicago and do it in the morning and then drive back for the show, and then it's another whirlwind. You guys know me. I'm always burning the candle at both ends and trying to light the middle. So I'm sorry I won't have a show in the afternoon tomorrow. Please be patient with me and with young Chip, and I will see you guys who is falling asleep in my lap right now. It's just he's so adorable. It's just brutal. You are such a... You are, Mr. Bigglesworth. And then I will be back to normal schedule. I'll do the Saturday show. The radio show will be done from Chicago in studio, which will be lovely. And then that night, we're live streaming. If you want tickets, go to sexyliberal.com. We're live streaming the Sexy Liberal show. And then obviously Sunday off, and then Monday will be back to normal morning show and afternoon show and all that kind of stuff. And then Tuesday of next week, you guys don't even know this, but Tuesday of next week, I have to go into LA, and I will be there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday because I have shows at Flappers on Friday and Saturday night, and I have an audition on Wednesday that's rather important in the morning. And an agent meeting because life is coming back to the industry. So I will be doing my regular shows on Wednesday morning and afternoon, but in between I've got to be in LA, so I will be doing it from there. House Parks going to meet you by the studio. Well, excellent, I suppose if that's okay with them. Hi, is Summer home? Is that who that is, Mr. Man? Is that who that is? Is Summer home? I think he heard the door open. So, anyways, so next week I will be doing the show half the time from LA, but still a show. And I'm going to try and create a slightly better looking version of things in LA since I'll be there a couple of days in a row finally. And, I really haven't, because of COVID, Summer and I have been hunkering down mostly in Vegas. So I really haven't had a setup in LA that works that well. So I'll do my best to kind of recreate something functional so I can see all your beloved support. Thanks for the follow on Twitch, everybody. Thanks for the super chats as well. It really, really does help, as does the Venmo. It's a great way to do it because Twitch takes a piece, YouTube takes a piece, but nobody takes a piece of Venmo. Matt Gates will tell you that. But it's a great way to support. You just point your phone at that graphic right there, and you can send any support you want or none at all. And again, like I said, Patreon's available, Super Chat's available, stars on Facebook's available, Twitch points and subscriptions are available for if you want to support and help the show. But you absolutely do not have to if you cannot or it makes you nervous or upset at all to give anything. I would rather have you enjoy the show freely than worry at all. So there you go. That's it. That's what Gates said, right? Why are you gnawing on my arm, silly? He's like, well, I want to go to sleep, and you keep moving. I'm only doing Venmo. Well, thank you, Emily Angel. Emily Angel. Is that what that is? MLE Angel. I like that. It's nice. Sometimes, people's online monikers are not that Easy. And if you're on Twitter, go over to YouTube, go to infotainmentwars.com or to twitch.tv/HalSparks and subscribe there and help us drive our numbers up. Also, thanks again on my way out the door. Thank you, trolls, for coming here and engaging and hate watching and all that kind of stuff, because you blow us up in the algorithm and you've helped us grow the show literally 400% in the last 2 months alone. So that's a blessing. I appreciate you guys. I really do. And everybody else, thank you for sharing. Thank you for take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning for the morning show, and then on and off, and then there we go again and everything. And Chip says good night. Say good night, Chip. Well, he said it in spirit. Love you, trolls, and love all our regulars even more. It's true. I do have a favorite. It's our regulars. There, I said it. Okay, see you tomorrow.